Okay, welcome. So today we're going to be talking about moon in the seventh house when it is your Arudha Lagna. So the Arudha Lagna is a very important part of Vedic astrology. If you don't know what your Arudha Lagna is, you go up here to astrology.thunderwizard.com. You can get a Vedic astrological reading from me. And right now we're having a special 50% off through January of 2020. So, what is the Arudha Lagna? Arudha Lagna is the reflection of the self. That's one of the interpretations of it. It literally means your mount, like your horse or your car. It's your vehicle. And it's the vehicle that takes the self to your greatest success. And in my experience, without a doubt, the Arudha Lagna is the most important thing you need to know in order to achieve success. Now, you have your Lagna, which is your rising sign. Your rising sign is the glasses through which you view your reality. That's your rising sign. That's why it adds to your personality. Your soul comes in, it puts on these glasses of whatever your sign is, Aries, Sagittarius, Virgo, whatever it is. Those are the lens through which your soul sees its life. But today we're talking about the moon, specifically the moon in the seventh house. What happens when the moon is in the seventh house of your birth chart as your Arudha Lagna? When that happens, then that's how people see you. Now, the moon is the second most important thing in a Vedic astrological chart. The first thing is your rising sign, which dictates how you view your whole life, how your whole life revolves around where your soul came into being. The moon is where your mind, your emotions are. So it's also extremely important. It's kind of right up there. So having your moon as your Arudha Lagna is a good thing because it means you already identify with it. But let's continue. The Arudha Lagna is your superpower. It's what you have achieved in previous lifetimes that you just naturally bring with you, but you have a karmic destiny with whatever your Arudha is. It means that the world needs to see you this way. Same way that, the best way that Superman can interact with the world is when he's got his Clark Kent glasses and his suit off, and he's flying towards, catching the bus as it's falling off of the freeway overpass. That's when he's at his best. That's how he serves people the best. That is his dharma, to protect and save human beings. That is what happens with your Arudha. Your Arudha is how you are best able to shine your true karmic powers to the world. You may not you may not relate to it, but that doesn't matter. Let's imagine that Superman prefers to be Clark Kent. He really doesn't want to be Superman. He likes to be Clark Kent, but when he has to, he goes and flies and catches the bus and saves all the people. This is what your Arudha is. It's also called the reflection. When you walk in the room, people see you as your Arudha. You have moon in the seventh house. This is how people see you. The moment you walk in the door, they see you as whatever your seventh house sign is. So let's say that your sign is Leo. That's your rising sign. What that would mean that your seventh house sign would be Aquarius. Is that right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. You would be an Aquarius. So if your Arudha was in the seventh house, then people would see you as an Aquarius, not as a Leo. So the seventh house is an interesting placement for the Arudha because there's some discrepancy about whether or not you can actually have the seventh house as an Arudha. The seventh house is the opposite of the ascendant. The ascendant is you, your ego, yourself, your personality. It's you. You're literally your physical body, your face, your identity. So directly opposite the first is the seventh. The seventh is the other. So the seventh house is the house of the spouse, your wife or your husband. It's also the house of being out in public. There's multiple houses for that. But the seventh house means being in a group of people, being with family, with friends, out into the marketplace, even where you could, mingle around others and sell and conduct business. So the seventh house, you can also see how people will do out in public. If you have a strong seventh house, or if you have certain planets in the seventh house, it means that it's really important for you to be out in public. If you don't have any planets in the seventh house, then you may not be a very public person. But when you've got moon in the seventh house, it means that your mind is already there, that your mind and your emotions are constantly thinking about being out with people, mingling with people. It also means that you get your identity through interacting with others. It also means that you can get your emotional identity from being in a marriage relationship, because the seventh house is the house of marriage. So you get it through your spouse. So if you've got moon in the seventh house in your Vedic astrological chart, and you're one of those people that I've got to always be around people, I've got to always be in relationships, that's why. So why is this important when it comes to your Arudha? Well, again, the seventh house is there's some controversy there, because some of the ancient astrologers taught that the seventh house can't be the Arudha, because the seventh house is already the reflection of the first house. Because what is your reflection? Your spouse. Your spouse is your mirror reflection, ideally. So they say, since it's already the reflection, the Arudha can't be there. I've come to the conclusion that that is wrong, that the seventh house can be an Arudha. And a lot of other astrologers whom I respect have also come to that conclusion as well. Here's my experience, though. My experience with the Arudha is that the Arudha, depending on where it's placed, can show strong karmic ego self-sabotage issues that you must face in this life in order to be successful. If your Arudha is in the first house, if your Arudha is in the seventh house, my experience is that there isn't that much karmic issues associated with it. In other words, you'll probably be fairly comfortable with people seeing you that way. Number one, your moon is there, so you're already emotionally identified with that. So you're going to have a strong identification with wherever your moon is. But besides that, if it's your Arudha, then doubly so. It's going to be, in my experience, and I could be wrong, I'm willing to change this, but so far, the charts that I've done, when people have their Arudha is in their seventh house, they're fairly comfortable with people seeing them that way. And that's what the Arudha is. The Arudha is how people see you. So like I said, if I gave you the example that your Arudha was the moon in the seventh house in Aquarius, it would mean that you were comfortable with the idea of people seeing you as a nurturer in the marketplace, or a nurturer in groups of people. The moon represents the mother, so it represents nurturing, it represents healing. You could be somebody that heals people. That could be part of what you do for a living. You could be a teacher, like let's say you're a yoga teacher, but when you go and you change people's posture, actually your presence heals them. The way that you teach, the way that you interact. Moon in the seventh house wants to be a deal maker, wants to be a peacemaker, wants to bring people together. So you would be the kind of person that people see, that you would say, hey, everybody, we're having a barbecue at my place. Come on over to my house and bring the kids, and I'm going to cook you the most amazing food you've ever had. You got to come. That would be something the moon would do, because the moon brings nurturing and brings people together. The moon wants to bring people together in the seventh house. And so come and have my pie. You would enjoy having people eat the pie and talk about it. The food would be the excuse for people to come together and experience each other. Maybe, you've got a couple of neighbors who fought over, where the fence line is. And you say, why don't you guys come over to my place? And, I'll cook you some spaghetti, and we'll sit down and talk it over. This is one of the things the moon would do. The moon is very social like that. But anyway, this is how people see you. If you've got moon in the seventh house, they see you, number one, they're going to see you as a very attentive partner. So the first thing that's going to happen is when you walk in the room, people are going to go, oh, that person would make a great spouse. Because moon in the seventh house would mean that your mind goes to your partner, to your relationships. The opposite, not the opposite, but I'm realizing now I have moon in the first house. So that means that my mind is reflecting. It reflects on relationships. So I'm a very giving partner in relationships because my moon is looking. It's aspecting the seventh house. But when your moon is right there in the seventh house, it means that your emotions are all about your partner. So you could be a very good marriage partner, friend, co-worker, having to do with that. So it's the nurturing networker. Now, this is going to change significantly based on the placement of, what sign it's in. It's going to make a big difference if there are other planets in there. So if there's Mars and Saturn in there, for instance, that's going to cause a lot. It's going to make some big changes. You got Jupiter in there, that's going to expand it. You get Rahu in there, that's going to cause a lot of things. Don't get me started on Rahu over the moon. I've experienced that lately. It's a big deal. In any case, what I'm trying to say is that the aspects that the other planets are having, and whether the moon is happy or unhappy, that's going to make a big difference on how things see you. So, for instance, if you had, if moon wasn't well placed in the seventh house and it wasn't in a happy sign, or if you were born on the new moon, then you would be very uncomfortable emotionally. You would want to be around people, but you would be very shy and uncomfortable. So the moon is a very changeable thing. Point is, astrology.thunderwizard.com, you need to get a qualified astrologer to take a look at what your Arudha is to see how your moon in the seventh house is really doing and how it works for you and all that good stuff. So that's it. Moon in the seventh house as your Arudha Lagna. And keep your eyes peeled. Subscribe. Hit the bell button if you want to see when I talk about your Arudha. And also go to courses.thunderwizard.com. That's all my books, all my DVDs, all of my streaming video courses, all of my services, counseling services, astrology, rune readings, those kinds of things. Subscribe, hit the bell button. I will see you guys very soon.